What's up? Welcome to episode 11 Peon Podcast. First podcast of 2023. I hope you guys had a great holiday. I had a pretty good holiday too. It was, drank a lot, probably too much, ate a lot of good food. But, yeah, it was a good way to end the year. Good way to end a very shitty year for me anyway. Man, what a year it was. So today on the podcast, first episode of the year, got Joel Rivas, who runs an organization called Heard. It is an organization that helps service industry workers find mental health care, which is something really important to me because I struggle with depression and stuff like that. I struggle with depression and other mental health issues, and not having access to that because you don't have healthcare or because it's literally impossible to afford it on a cook salary or a bartender's salary, or any other variation of the service industry salary. This organization, Joel's organization, helps connect you with groups, communities that will help you get access to affordable healthcare, or just give you a community that will help you get to meetings if you have an addiction or you need people to talk to, which is a beautiful thing because that's really all we have, really. I mean, we get paid so little, we work super fucking hard, and we don't really get treated right by customers a lot of the time, or owners of businesses technically. So all we really have is each other, and what Joel's doing is amazing shit. So I want to just, put the word out as much as possible about Joel and Heard. They're going through a little, I guess you could call it restructuring right now, which he talks about a little at the beginning of this episode, but I'll let him explain it. He's far more knowledgeable than I on the subject of nonprofits. But I met Joel. I had just started, I was getting together the first issue of Peon, which took me a whole year because I had to build the whole infrastructure of the whole website and learn all that stuff and learn Adobe and all that kind of stuff too. So it took me a long time. But as I was shaping it, I was at a bar, this new like coffee shop bar on the east side of Austin, and it was Tuesday or something like that. It was dead. There was nobody there except for like this little group of people. And all of a sudden, Joel got up and started talking, and I was like, oh, what the hell did we just walk into? I'm thinking it's like, comedy night or something like that, stand-up night, open mic night or something like that. But no, it was Joel doing something they don't really do anymore, which is they used to do meetups in San Antonio and Austin for people in the industry to just come and talk about addiction, their own stories, mental health, just have a place to talk and make you feel like you have a support system. And so Joel just starts talking, and he's telling us how he got like clean and how he went to Mexico to sober up, and then his journey through the kitchens. And afterwards I talked to him and I was like, man, dude, this is amazing. I'm trying to create this magazine where I want service industry people to like tell their stories, and I want them to have a platform to just talk, without any sort of barrier or award or any journalists in the way. And there was this guy who was just doing it right there. So I talked to him and I was like, hey man, let's do something. And then, we talked a few times, went back and forth. And also he lives in San Antonio. I live in Austin. And then I got busy and stuff like that. So it never really happened. And then the pandemic hit, and I was doing issue 2. And I contacted him again, and I said, hey, man, and we sit down again and talk about, you may be writing something, just writing your story. Just I'll edit it. And that was great because we were also talking about some sort of collaboration to like get the Heard into the magazine somehow, kind of like advertise it, get the word out about it. And then that didn't happen either. Just life shit happens, and I understand it's hard to sit down and write your story, and then also just writing's fucking hard shit. So I totally get it. And then for a while this year, we were talking and I was like, hey man, I got this podcast. I think it's a perfect place to like, for you to just come on and we'll just talk, it's great. And so after, he had a hell of a year, he had, as he talks about, he had COVID and he had some other, health issues and things like that. And, he has a family and he has a wife and stuff. So he's a busy guy. But I'm so happy we finally got to sit down and talk, because what he's doing is amazing and it deserves all the fucking support that he can get. Seriously. I'm lucky enough to work at a restaurant that offers mental health care through an organization in Austin. So there's some support there, but there's literally zero of that anywhere else. And there's no awareness of it either. It's like if you're in a kitchen, there's no mention of healthcare. There's no, mental health care. And there's no mention of any sort of your insurance being able to support that. And this job takes a toll mentally and physically, but we don't really talk about the mental strain that it takes on people until it happens. You know what I mean? So I think it's something to talk about a lot and keep it out there, keep it going. I remember when Bourdain died, the one like takeaway I had from that, well, there's many takeaways, of course, but the one takeaway I had from that was, as a person who deals with depression a lot, like on a daily basis, is just to make it known to people, because no one knew that Bourdain was depressed. No one had any idea. They didn't know. They were just like, what? The happiest guy in the world with the best job in the world with all the coolest friends and everything. He killed himself? That's crazy. No one knew except for like a few people close to him. And even then, he kind of was like a little skittish about it. So I've tried to make it more obvious to people that if I'm having a rough time, I'll tell my family, like, I'm going through some shit right now. And so I think that's really important to just keep the word out there. Shit, I don't know. I hope that this year is a lot better. I'm gonna try. I'm gonna say this right now, but I can't be held to it because life gets in the way a lot of the time. But my plans for 2023 are, at the very least, to try and get the podcast up to 1 episode a week. So that's 4 a month. If I can manage that. Again, it's just me doing all this shit. On top of that, I have 2 issues planned for this year, but one of those is extremely involved. I've done a lot of legwork behind that one, so hopefully that one won't be that hard, but you never know. It's just me. I can't afford any help. So I try to just make sure that it's good and that I like it, and that it's interesting and different. There's a lot of shit out there. There's a lot of Bobbishes. There's a lot of what's his name? Fucking Weissmans and shit. You know what I mean? There's not, just trying to be different and unique and like offer something interesting to the conversation of the service industry and the food industry and stuff. So if it takes a while, I didn't release an issue last year because it just didn't happen. So I'm just trying to make sure that what I do in terms of the online magazine is interesting and different and sort of pushes it forward every single time and makes it fun and different. So those are my goals for this year. We'll see if that happens. I hope it happens. I'm going to put all my fucking effort into that. But, still got to make money. Still got to go to work. Still got to be, have a life. So we'll see what happens, man. I just wanted to also look over like some of the podcasts from last year and kind of like reminisce a little bit. It's wild that I'm looking over this and I only did 10 last year, which kind of sucks, but it's okay. It started in July and then ended in December. But dude, I think these, starting with, my best friend Keaton and then going to a Michelin star chef with, Christopher Hatuft, is crazy, man. In the span of 6 months, that's wild, man. Me and my buddy Keaton did the first episode in my little shed, we'll call it, my little apartment, and that was crazy. I think that one just really sets the tone for what this is. You know what I mean? I want this to be, I've said this multiple times, but I want this podcast to show the breadth and depth and variety of what the service industry and the food industry is. So you got, guys like Keaton who have worked in like sandwich shops with fucking ex-cons and shit. And then you got literally, ending the year with Christopher Hotooft, who just got a Michelin star last year. So, I mean, shit, if that doesn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, then I don't know what will. But I mean, there's so much similarity there too, because Chef Hotooft is like such a cool, like, down to earth dude who just like curses just like any other cook and, talks shit just like any other cook. So we're all just the fucking same. And I'm trying to see how many times I can say fuck in this intro. That episode 2 was with Kyle, who's a killer photographer in New York. If you haven't checked out his shit, check it out. He just came out with the book of his See You Next Tuesday series. Just look up See You Next Tuesday. The book is available still. I hope it's still available. If he sold out, then fuck yeah, congratulations. But I think there's still some available. It's a badass series. If you haven't listened to that episode, check that episode out as well. I'm also looking through this. It's wild. I forgot The Bear came out. Like, The Bear was just like such a fucking splash in the pan. Like, everybody freaked out about it and lost their shit over it. Some, like, a lot of the people that I know didn't really like, they had such strong negative reactions to it. And then I know a lot of people who fucking loved it and had really positive reactions to it. I kind of want to go back through and like watch it now that everything's settled down. I think originally I talked about doing a series on my Patreon where I just go through each episode and talk about it. I might actually do that now that everything's kind of calmed down, kind of as a ramp up to season 2, which I'm sure they're probably filming right now. So that'll probably end up doing, because I'm getting better at editing. It's getting easier. I'm doing these a lot quicker. So I think I'll plan on doing something like that. I'll let you know when that happens. Episode 3, man, I felt like that was wild, man. Jesse Quide, who's somebody I followed for a long time. I watched, like I said, his Munchies episode like so many times. And so it's wild to talk to Jesse, and he's the shit, man. Seriously. Andrew Jack. The big part of that episode was him meeting Guy Fieri, and he somehow found a picture of him with Guy Fieri. It's crazy. He's like, I thought he was telling me that he was just kind of like on the side of the stage, like just hanging out over there, and Guy Fieri was on the stage and like he just was floating around. No, he has a picture of him like arms around Guy Fieri. It's great. It's cool shit. Maybe Andy can hook me up with Guy Fieri. Need him on the podcast. Number 1 guest. That's a goal for this year. Get Guy Fieri on the podcast. If anybody can hook that up, please help. Hey, maybe Christopher knows him. Maybe Chef Hotooft knows him. Ben Randall, episode 6. This episode has quite a lot of similarities to that episode because Joel is, he's in recovery, just like Ben is sober. So there's some relation there. If you listen to that episode, there's definitely like some relation between these two guys working in these fast-paced kitchens and just like trying to keep the party going. It's hard sometimes to distinguish between the shift feeling like a party and then getting off and you're like, well, let's keep the party going. But I think the older you get, I think you realize like, no, this is not a party. This is a shift. I need to go the fuck home. I need to rest and I need to relax so that I can do it again tomorrow. I'm still learning that, and I'm fucking 35 and I've been in the industry for like so long. So yeah. Episode 7, my buddy Huey. That one really threw a curveball at some people. I love that. I love doing that episode, man. Huey was the shit. he didn't think he would be good on the podcast, and then it turned out so fucking good. That's what I keep trying to like tell people. A lot of people are kind of apprehensive about doing this, but then it's just a conversation. We just talk, and then stories start to flow, and all the, you know, it all comes out. You start remembering all these crazy things. But I love doing that episode. It was so much fun. They had my first Jimmy John sandwich last year too, man. What an accomplishment. What an accomplished year. And then that threw such a curveball to like the cook people in my life. They were like, who the fuck is this guy? Why would you have him on the podcast? Again, it's to show the variety and, you know, of the industry, of the people in the industry. Some people just get thrown in this shit and they don't even want to be in it. So that was definitely Huey. And then, oh God, dude, we got to talk about this one. Fuck. Oh, dude. Yeah, sometimes, man, you don't realize how shit fucks you up. Episode 8, tribute to my friend DK, the legend of Austin. Man, you don't realize how like deaths fuck you up until later. You're just like, whoa, what the hell? Why was I so angry for a while there? Oh, because my friend died and I didn't deal with it. I'm still trying to deal with that. I hope that there's some sort of closure on that soon. I don't really want to talk about that anymore, but that's me going, I should deal with it, and then I don't deal with it. So I go to episode 9. I killed my buddy Dominic Candy. Dude, Dom's been blowing up. I love it. I think that was a great episode. That was so much fun. Just reminiscing about old coworkers and like kind of tracing the whole like dining scene through Austin was super cool. You know, if you trace the trajectory of Austin, you can kind of see it through me and him talking, because we're just like some line cooks who started in like shitty, you know, food trucks, and then you can see how we kind of worked our way through kitchens and how the kitchens started to get better and better, and the chefs in town got better and better, and the food community kind of grew. It's wild to think about that just through me and a friend. And then end of the year perfect with Christopher Hottooft, man. That was a wild episode. Still my favorite. That dude needs like a TV show or something like that, man. He's a fucking legend. He is awesome. Just killing it. That's a wild little ride I went on, huh? From July to December. Yeah, that's a good run. All right, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens this year. As always, I'll say, you know, Patreon's still up there. If you'd like to donate, I'd love that. That gives me more time to work on this stuff. It gives me more resources. I'd like to somehow hire an editor so that I don't have to spend all the time editing. I can just record them, send them off. But, you know, that costs money. So if you'd like to donate or support, peonmagazine.com/support. There's some links there and stuff. And I think at the bottom of the description of the podcast, there should be a little donation link from Red Circle, which is the podcasting service I use. Also, you can support me by just buying some merch. Got some cool ass merch up there. That's at peonmagazine.com/store. And then if you have any suggestions for people that you want to see on the podcast, send them to just DM me on Instagram at Peon Magazine, or go to the website. I got email on there. Yeah, man, I'd love some suggestions. I'd love people to like just be like, hey, try and get this person, or hey, I have a friend who has some crazy stories. Have them on. You know, there's no barrier to entry on this podcast. I'll talk to anybody. It's mainly about time and commitment and things like that. So, yeah, I hope everybody had a great holiday season. I hope you guys have big plans for 2023. I think this is a great way to start off with, you know, some mental health awareness, some health awareness, and a great talk with Joel from Heard. If you do need any sort of resources, Joel talks about it at the end of this episode, but I'll just say right now, you can go to iheardyou.org or at the Instagram at heard_org. They have tons of resources. They'll help you, whatever you need. Do not be shy. Ask questions. If you need help, ask for help. Okay? All right. Have a great 2023. I'll see you in a couple weeks, and then hopefully we'll get down a schedule of weekly podcasts. All right. Enjoy this episode.
Yeah, doing
Yeah.
good. Been getting over COVID and bronchitis and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, man, you've had a
So
hell of a year.
it has been been a year. How are you doing?
Yeah. I'm all right. It's been a year too, rough year, but it's all right, man. It's looking bright. Yeah.
Good, good.
Yeah, yeah.
How's the zine doing?
It's good. It's been very challenging because I working and having just day to day life as well as like working on the magazine. It's hard. It's hard doing
Yeah,
all that stuff. Just me as well. So
yeah,
it's good though. The podcast has been a great addition. Everybody seems to like it a lot.
good.
So
Oh, that's
that's
awesome.
fun. Yeah. I'm
Cool.
glad we finally connected on this.
Yeah,
You're a busy man. Yeah.
that's
Yeah. How's everything going with Herd and Saint City?
so it's going okay. Like I said, we've had quite the year. We're going to be doing some restructuring. So
Okay.
Herd has continued to grow quite a bit, and of course, as you know, like
Yeah.
need for what Herd does has grown. Uh, it has grown past the point of where Saint City can support it. So we are looking
Yeah.
for a new home, probably a larger nonprofit that can scale it,
Okay.
and actually grow it and do something with it. And we'll be actually closing the doors to Saint City at the end of the year. So
Dang. Okay.
yeah, so
Wow.
we're we just the financial support on our nonprofit end is just this year just it wasn't there. We some grants that we've gotten the past few years, they granted other nonprofits with it,
Dang.
um, and just I think just a lot of donor giving just is always reactionary. I think all nonprofits see a lot of that.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
there's so many other things that pop up and other nonprofits kind of compete for the same realm of people a lot of times,
Yeah.
and so it was just really too much for us to be able to kind of carry on as an organization, and so but the program and the need is still there, and so we're gonna look for a new home for it and keep that going as much as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that search been going so far?
So far, so good. We've had a couple of people that are interested in it. They just want to make sure they have the manpower and infrastructure to
Hmm.
going. So we've had to scale back some of the services for the time being, and we're doing more of kind of what we originally did was we're keeping up the support of the peer-led support groups because those are really volunteer based, and doing that with online. Our online national support group is probably the most well attended and most what we have the most focus on and more people that actually attend. And then whenever we have individuals looking for therapy in their respective cities,
Hmm.
what we'll do is we'll work with whatever county resources are available and kind of help them cut through the red tape and find
Okay.
low cost or no cost therapy options for them in their cities. Since we have people from different states that request help and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. At
yeah,
least some people are still getting the help they need. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We still have
Yeah.
the healthcare option available, the telehealth option available for people that don't have insurance and
Yeah.
want to have that need a primary care physician access. For the $29 a month, we use a third party uh, telehealth provider for that.
Yeah.
And that still works out. So we still have people, weekly and monthly that sign up for that. So
That's
uh,
great. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
we're still working in as much as possible and
Nice.
to help as many as possible. That it's that I think a lot of light was shed on mental health and wellness issues in the industry during the pandemic, and then now
For sure. Yeah.
it's kind of
Yeah.
people have gone back to business as normal, and a lot of people have really kind of like, oh well, it's just you know it's just
Yeah.
service industry people again. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
There's still a lot of work to be done.
a
Yeah.
lot of work to be
Of
done.
course.
There's,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
All right, man. Well, I guess let's start at the beginning. I mean,
Yeah.
how did you get into the food service industry and why?
Oh man. I started working in the industry when I was 17. I started working like a lot of back house people. I started washing dishes, working at dish pit, and then moved up to doing prep, and then working the line, and did that, early on, and then started working in front of house and serving as a server. Just I found that I was able to make tips, and that was cool. And,
Oh yeah.
and so I
Well,
started.
what was the was that all the same restaurant
Oh
or
no,
did you okay.
it was in Dallas. So I worked at um, I worked on the border. I worked at a couple independent Italian restaurants in Arlington area,
Mhm.
and worked at a couple like bar and grill, places there in the Dallas, near uptown Dallas area. So
Uh-huh.
it was, there were times I don't know, I worked at 3 different places, a week. It was just like
Jeez, man.
restaurants. I would just kind of rotate days, and
Yeah.
it was back in the day, when most jobs paid $5.50 an hour. I mean, this was the mid-90s. It
Yeah. Yeah.
was $5.50, $6 an hour, and lived in a house with 4 other guys, and that all worked in the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I remember I worked a lot there, kind of downtown, uptown Dallas area.
Why did you get that first dishwashing job? What drew you to that?
Um, God, I had people that worked. I had friends that worked in kind of back of house at different restaurants, and it was just it was something that didn't require. I thought it really required a lot of gave me free time, and it's something I could wear whatever to, and it was when you're
The sort of
17,
ease of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
so it was. I go back there and put on a smock, and just put your head down and just do your job,
Yeah.
for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, it was just, I kind of think back, and I was like, God, that was great. You could just, like a
Yeah. No
Walkman,
responsibilities. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
had a
Right.
Walkman, and just kind of clipped it on the back of my pants, and I could just,
Just did the dishes. Yeah.
listen
Yeah.
to, listen to Beastie Boys and Smashing
Nice.
Pumpkins.
Nice. Yeah. So you'd enjoyed it then. You enjoyed
I did, yeah. No, I
yeah.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and I really, what kind of kept me, I think, in the industry was just because everyone ends up being like, your group, your people, and your social circle.
Hmm.
And it was just,
Yeah.
and everyone kind of has the same stories, and when you're that age, I think finding a sense of belonging is
Oh
important,
yeah.
and
For
working in
sure.
a restaurant, and you get that sense of belonging, and you get that kind of group of people, and you can commiserate about the same shit, and
Yeah.
things like
Yeah.
that. So it's it was just it felt good to have like this group of people that was very different than kind of. So I grew up in a very conservative Baptist household growing up,
Oh
and
wow. Okay.
my dad was a Baptist pastor, and so was my grandfather, and so
Wow.
this was something that I guess some people would say rebel, but I mean, as I moved out of my house when I was after I graduated from high school, and it was just it was a very
Totally
different
different
I grew up in.
environment.
I had a lot
Yeah.
of freedom in
Yeah.
what I did, and so especially when I started waiting tables, and I'd have cash in my pocket at the end of the night, and it was just it was just I think of freedom and belonging, and having an instant tribe of people that all hung out
Yeah.
together, lived together,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What made you start doing like prep and cooking then? Was that just like
Um,
sort of a natural transition there?
I think the first time was out of necessity. They needed somebody
Oh yeah.
just to chop
Somebody didn't
shit.
show up to work or something.
Yeah, yeah. And they're like, hey, do you know how to chop onions and stuff? And it was just one of those machines, the machines
Oh,
you push
like
down.
you just push down
Yeah, and
and
you
it
push it, and
cuts
it
it
was
for
just
you.
I mean, it was a Tex-Mex place, and so it was just a lot of like onions and tomatoes and stuff.
Okay.
And so And again, I liked it. I like that you could, the repetitive doing the same thing over and over again. And just at the same time, they had music playing back there, and everyone's just talking shit to each other. And
Yeah.
it was just, and yelling at the servers. And when you're at that point, I was 18 years old or so. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just,
Yeah.
it was
That
fun.
life seems appealing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
It
was
seems
fun.
crazy and chaotic. Yeah. 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 My first cooking job was in a food truck, and it was exactly like that. It's just chaos. There's music playing so loud you can't hear anything. And yeah, it's a fun environment.
Yeah. And then before you know it, like the night's done,
Yeah.
and everyone has that collective like sigh. And,
Oh yeah. Feels like you went through something.
Yeah. And it felt good. And, at that time you have lots of energy. And so, and you almost, after you get off, you have this still kind of buzz of like working and moving all night. So
Oh
at
yeah.
that point, we go to somebody's house and, drink beer or whatever. And so,
Yeah.
it was,
Did you end up working the line at that place as well?
I ended up,
Cooking?
no, I think the first place I worked the line at was this little Italian joint in Arlington, where I worked the line. I worked basically boiling, they prep individual servings of pasta. And so basically, throwing them in the water, doing that, and then working the fryer there, basically fried mozzarella and calamari and things like that. So that was the first time doing prep was there at that Italian place. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you enjoy cooking as much as you enjoyed I guess the freedom of the dish pit?
I mean, there were things I liked about it. It moved a lot quicker, and there was a lot more variety in changing things up. So I guess it was a little more challenging, I guess. And so, but it was, again, it was, I remember it was very, it was kind of the same things. It was, fettuccine Alfredo or spaghetti and meat sauce. And, a lot of it was just plating and moving things. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that part because, the dish pit, you're usually by yourself for most of the night. And on the line, we would have 3 or 4 guys there that you'd have for the night, kind of, so that, again, that camaraderie and stuff was fun for me, and stuff. So, but yeah.
How many cooking jobs did you have before you ended up moving to the front of house?
Probably 2, I guess, probably three jobs. And then in one of the places, this one bar and grill I worked at, I did both. Is where I started.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So some nights I would be back because there would only be 2 cooks there. And we'd be back there. And then some nights I'd work front of house whenever I could slip in and do that. And so,
that's interesting. I've never heard of anybody doing that, like part-time cook, part-time server.
It was the mid-90s, man. It was just 5.
Just that kind of craziness. Yeah.
And it was over off of Lower Greenville Avenue. So it was kind of by, I know a lot of like SMU kids would go there. It was burgers, chicken sandwiches, fries, loaded fries, kind of stuff.
College food kind of stuff.
It was bar food. So fried mushrooms. So it wasn't I never did like really, I was never a chef. I was never I never did any like really fancy cooking. Everything I did was kind of line dog stuff. And then I guess.
Yeah. I mean, that's where I think most people come from, People don't really appreciate that kind of stuff because most of the highlight is on the chefs and the people doing fine dining. But I mean, most line cooks are just doing that,
Yeah, and and I really did love, thinking back, I really did love the like that casual camaraderie and the way the banter and things like that you have back in the back.
Yeah, there's there's nothing else like it. Well, I've never
Yeah,
heard anything or been at
yeah,
any other job like that. So
exactly. Initiating like new line cooks and to do
yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Did you guys have any initiation,
So,
like
oh,
things or anything like that?
yeah. I mean, mostly it would be things like I think it was mostly just like giving people shit and like being really gross and inappropriate. And it's
That's
I talk with people and the inappropriateness that happened in like in that time compared to now. It's
yeah.
like
I
there's
can't even imagine.
there was
Yeah.
no HR department. There was no.
No. No. There's barely one right now, you know.
It
I
was
can't
pretty
imagine back
terrible.
then.
It was pretty terrible. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was mostly giving people shit and
Yeah.
I
Did
can't.
you enjoy being a server, or did you find that
I did.
sort of
I
grueling?
enjoyed I did. Um, I really enjoyed being a server when it was like a bar and grill type setting or like a college bar type setting. I
Mhm.
did a little bit of sort of fine dining at an Italian place in Dallas. I didn't like that so much.
A little too
It
stiff?
was a
Is
little
that what
too
it was?
stiff. And I found that, like in a college bar, that the more I pump the drinks up, that I would make.
Yeah.
And so I love that. I mean, I love that part of it. I more than anything with serving, I loved it because I could walk with cash at the end of the night, and
Yeah,
I always
right.
had cash in my pocket at the end of the night, which was nice. And so, but then it's I appreciate the fact that I had to work back at house because I just you kind of when it comes to things like tipping out your busser and back then you didn't really tip out the kitchen, but I found that I had a lot more empathy of what was happening in the back of the house.
Yeah. Right.
Also, I was able to, gain favor from people that were working in the kitchen because I knew what they were going through
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if I needed something on the fly or something, I could get it, you know, pretty quickly. So
Yeah.
that was nice.
They understood that you were you had experienced what they were going through, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
Where did you go to from that place? Did you go
uh,
back to the kitchen or did you stay front
no,
of house?
I stayed front of house and then I started, then when I did a little bartending at a beer bar there on Lower Greenville in Dallas.
Mhm.
It doesn't exist. Actually, it moved locations. It's still there, called the Barley House. And then not long after that I went to rehab and
Oh, geez.
I
Yeah.
moved out of the country actually for three and a half years um, to really get cleaned up and uh, just really get my life straight. And then came back to the U.S. In 1999 and started and went to college, and then I started bartending. I just bartended through college. Did a couple restaurants, and then did banquet bartending with the hotel in their catering department, and did that pretty much through college. So yeah,
Wait, was your addiction leading up to that point, or was it
yeah.
was I guess was it because of working in kitchens? I guess is what
Well,
I'm
I mean, working in
want
kitchens
to
and
ask.
restaurants, period. Again, your social circle. My social circle was everyone I worked with, and of course, like after work, everyone goes out or everyone hangs out together. Um, and that structure, that mentality, and the dynamic of that. There's nothing like it, and there's so much beauty, and there's it's such a great industry because of that. The downside sometimes is that you have people that enable things that you do, and for me, it was drug use, and I lost several jobs, over the
Oh,
course of
geez.
a couple of years because,
Mhm.
I would call off on so many shifts, try to show up late, or be basically I'd be up all night. Um, I was hooked on coke and meth for a couple of years, and it was uh,
Damn.
I'd be up all night or up for a couple days. I'd miss shifts and got fired from several places. And finally, in 1996, I was at my worst point in my life, just addiction wise. And my mother had died that year, and I think it was just
geez, man.
not knowing how to cope with that and not having any, I have no idea what therapy was or mental health. And then,
I know. Yeah. Right. Back then it was,
it was non-existent. And so for me, coping was drinking heavily or doing blow. And that was just, and so I just spun out of control for several months, and then, decided to go to rehab and live with my family in Mexico City. Was originally
how did that happen? Was that something? Did you just hit a bottom and you realized you had to change, or was it a moment?
I hit a bottom. I was fired from. Was basically through everything through a few years. The constant was this one bar and grill I worked at called the Green Elephant in Dallas, and it was like my home. It was when you work somewhere that's like your home, and even though you work other places, you always work at that place at least a few days a week. And so finally, it got to the point where I lost my job there, and I was just like devastated. Which in hindsight, they had to fire me. I mean, it was just I was selling coke out of the place, and I was
man,
all the time, and I was a fucking mess of a human being. And so at that point my dad, there was a program for me to go into in Mexico City, living with my family and getting clean, and I didn't really speak Spanish at all. And so basically his thought was I could get into the least amount of trouble there because I don't know anyone. I don't know the language. It was an English speaking program. I could go to their rehab program. And so I did that. And I was only supposed to be there for a few weeks to a month. I ended up staying there for 3 years.
Dang.
Just because I fell in love with living down there, and I started teaching English down there, and just really kind of found myself and just cleaned up.
What part of Mexico City were you in?
So when I moved there, I lived in a place called Satélite. It's the Colonia Satélite with my family, and then moved to another colonia called Xola. And then my last, I guess, year there, I lived at the time was attending a church there, an English-speaking church in Mexico City. So it was an area town called Lomas de Chapultepec, and lived with a family there that attended the church I was working at.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of it's some different places around there and around the city. Yeah,
I love that city. It's I think it's one of the best cities in the world. It's underrated. It's so amazing.
Oh, it's incredible.
I've only been to like the main like downtown and Roma and places like that, but it's so incredible. Yeah. I love that place. The food is unbelievable.
Oh man. So I have like the hole in the wall restaurants that are still there that were there when I lived down there. And so
no way.
And so when I go, like my wife and I over the past few years have been there a few times. And it's like I still go to the same dives I went to and the same taqueria.
That's amazing. And they haven't changed, huh?
Not at all. No, they're same.
That's wild. That's wild. That is really wild.
But yeah, whenever we go now, we'll stay like in Colonia Roma or Condesa and and stuff. But there's a street taco place in the centro in downtown area that we go to all the time. That's really good. Those cool.
Oh, I went there. Yeah, I don't speak very good English, so I was a mess. I was just like, it's moved so fast there.
Oh yeah,
and so I didn't know what to do, or if he was talking to me or talking to somebody else, and I got so confused. But the food was amazing. Yeah,
you can't get anything like that. You can't.
No. Yeah. That place is incredible.
Everything cooking in the
one pot.
Yeah, in one pot.
Yeah.
On
that place is
in tacos. Yeah.
Yeah. That place is great. Um, was was the drug culture pretty prevalent in kitchens back then?
Oh
Was
yeah.
it pretty much like, was that just because they were working so much and they needed something to keep
I
going, or
mean,
was it just like a
everyone
kind of
smoked pot, but it was like really bad swag, and it was mostly like stems and seeds all compressed, and you know.
yeah.
And so, remember like just sitting in the living room, you had your shoebox lid and like breaking apart all the stems and seeds out of it. And so everyone's pot, and and Coke was cheap and easily available, and it was, I mean, it was just, it's kind of the same. Fortunately, back then we really didn't have to worry about like fentanyl, which is
Oh, okay.
terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
Now it's such a. I talk to folks, and it's such a, it's terrible now because you have to worry about something being cut with fentanyl and dying. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
we didn't.
Which might be a good deterrent, I guess, for people to
I hope
not,
so.
not use so many drugs. But
Yeah, I hope so. I think that people's relationship with different drugs or marijuana or coke or alcohol is different. I think there are some drugs that are that everyone should stay away from because they're just awful. I think things like heroin and opioid addiction are awful. I think,
yeah,
but like for some people, I think smoking marijuana is fantastic and great, and their relationship that with my relationship with something like marijuana is very different than my relationship with alcohol. And but like with Coke, I didn't have an off switch, and I would just
yeah.
I was that really annoying person at like 5 in the morning when it runs out and everyone's like ready to leave, and I'm like, no, I'm still going, and I was that guy. But yeah, it was.
Was that reinforced by the kitchens you were in, or were you kind of that one guy out?
Um,
I
at
guess.
first, it was reinforced by just the people I hung around, and it was just it
Yeah.
was the thing to do, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it's never something like someone forcing you to do drugs. It just happened to
Yeah.
be available, and it happened to be something I really enjoyed, and
Yeah.
so I dove in and did it. And during the course of over a few years, there were people in my life that especially in that last year or so that I worked with in bars and restaurants to try to intervene and be like, hey man, you mean this is
Oh, damn.
way too much. And so there were those people that I worked with that were friends and that try to deter me. And even in during that time period, if there were little stints, I was like, okay, I need to lay off. Even people that I hung out with were great about being like, nah, don't do that around Joel. He's trying to, you know,
Oh,
uh,
that's good.
yeah. I mean, it was because the people that I worked with in those kitchens and those restaurants, we all loved each other and we all cared.
Yeah.
A lot like restaurants and stuff. I mean, even today, it's that family. And I don't mean family as like an owner operator saying this is a family, but
Yeah, no. Yeah, you spend more time at your kitchen or your bar or whatever than you do at home sometimes.
oh,
So,
absolutely. It becomes your family in so many ways. For people that a lot of times don't have any food in their cupboard, like their shift meal is the only meal they eat that
yeah.
day. If they get kicked
Yeah.
out of their house for one reason or another, it's usually the people you work with that you crash on their couch or you end up
Yeah.
getting an apartment or a house with. And so they really do become your family. And I've worked in different industries over my lifetime, and this is the only industry that I've ever seen that sort of dynamic in.
Yeah,
And,
for sure.
and it's like I said, there's a lot of beauty in that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of love there, and
Yeah.
a lot of times it's just people coping with shit the best way they know how to, and a lot of times
Exactly. Yeah.
it's not the healthiest, and so
Yeah.
a lot of things haven't changed since the mid '90s, and except for now, especially over the past 3 to 5 years, you've seen people talk about mental health more and
Yes.
sobriety and wellness and taking care of themselves. And
Hmm.
there's some people at the forefront of that have been really, really fantastic. So,
Yeah. When you came back, you said you ended up being a bartender.
yeah.
Was there any sort of conflict in your mind about having to do that?
No, I just again, my relationship with alcohol is something different.
Okay.
I've been clean from hard drugs for 26 years, but will still drink once in a while. But it's alcohol for me has always been one of those things that I can go 2 months without drinking anything, and I can have
Yeah.
a glass of wine or I can have a cocktail. I was never really
Oh, okay. You're
I
never
was,
really a
was
drinker.
never I was never really a drinker. It wasn't something
Hmm.
I liked being alert and aware of everything and being like,
Okay.
level 12. And that's why cocaine
Yeah.
for me was the biggest, was something I
Okay.
got out of hand. So,
That definitely goes hand in hand with kitchen work for sure, because
oh,
kitchens are kind of on level, that
yeah.
high
Oh,
adrenaline, high speed. Yeah. So
oh, yeah. I mean, there's, during that time period, you can't tell you how many, backs of urinals I did bumps of coke off of. So, but it was, but
that's
then coming
wild.
back and bartending,
Yeah.
it was the mindset for me really was just a job. And again, I still love that dynamic. Uh,
Yeah.
I knew that I could do it without being destructive. And by that point in my life, I could even be around, you know, Coke and stuff and not want it. I've
Your mentality had changed.
completely, and I
Yeah.
think it was addressing, just continually like addressing in my life and making positive strides and doing positive things in my life to where it just, when I thought about it or look at it, even to this day, when I see it now, I think of, all of those times at like 9 a.m. I was driving back home just after being up all night and watching people go to
Yeah.
work and just being
Yeah.
like hot and sweaty and can't breathe. And it's just how
Yeah.
miserable that day is out of the hundreds of nights I was on coke or on meth. I can maybe 2 nights I can remember that were like fun nights,
Oh
So
shit.
it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
when you step back and look at the scope of all of that, it's like it really wasn't great, and there's so much more,
Yeah.
So like when I was in college, I did part of college in Portland, Oregon, and lived there in Portland, and I got really into doing outdoor stuff, and I
Yeah.
camping and hiking, and so that became an addiction, and I'm an addict. I just am, and by personality, and I admit that, and I just found different things in my life to be addicted to.
Yeah. More healthy things. Yeah.
Healthy things, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And how long before you ended up finding Saint City and Heard and those
yeah.
organizations?
So I started. I got married and had kids. Started working in healthcare business development, just because
Okay.
I needed to start making money and supporting a family. During the course
It's
of
hard
that,
to do that on cook's
it's
salary or a bartender's salary.
exactly.
Very much so. Yeah.
So I started doing that, and then um, uh, during the course of that, uh, especially the last 5 or 6 years, I worked in the healthcare industry. I was doing a lot of consulting for people that had bars and restaurants and helping them either develop menus or marketing strategies, or working with them on teaching their kitchen staff food costing and things like that.
Well,
So
that's really cool.
I started doing a lot of consulting over the period of a few years, and just because in my life that's kind of always where I've gone back to in the service industry. I feel more at home in a restaurant or bar than I do in an office. It's just always the way
Yeah.
in for me. Um,
Yeah.
and so even in my 40s, I'm like that. And so when I left the healthcare industry at the end of 2016, and the beginning of 2017, I decided I wanted to really do something that gave back and that was meaningful to me. And so I created Saint City in the beginning of 2017, and I knew that I wanted to do something that the focus was on the sustainability of people that worked in food and beverage. in different ways and shapes and forms. And so I started Heard as, providing mental health and wellness and addiction recovery resources for people that worked in the industry. And that, over the period of a couple of years, morphed into what it is now. And then over the pandemic, it just kind of blew up.
Yeah. The need was definitely there.
Yeah, and I think you and I met like right before the pandemic started, like literally a month or two before the pandemic hit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is wild to think about, because it was feels like ages ago, feels like a lifetime ago. But yeah, I didn't know that Heard was that new. I thought it had been around for a while.
Yeah, 2017 is when we started, and when we started, I mean, there were really only a couple of people doing what we did in the U.S. In some way, shape, or form. You had Kat Kinsman, who's an editor of Food and Wine magazine, and she started in 2016 or 2015 a group called Chefs with Issues that focused on mental health of people that worked in kitchens, and she was kind of like my inspiration for starting Heard. Yeah, and then you had Ben's friends, who Mickey Bax and Steve Palmer had started on the East Coast in South Carolina, focusing on sobriety support and recovery. So there were a couple of people doing in the realm of what I want to do with Heard. And so what was really amazing was just the support, and once reaching out to those different people, like, okay, we need more people like this and doing this. But
you said you reached out to those people. Did they end up helping you?
Oh, tons.
Sort of organize Heard. That's awesome.
So like they helped in as far as like referring people and stuff. For example, they're in Austin, getting to know Philip Spear, and for the first few years of having Heard there in Austin, Callie Spear, Philip's ex, was helping us with Heard, and so we would refer people that were specifically in addiction recovery that worked in restaurants, refer them to Ben's friends, being like, this group has support groups that specifically focus on sobriety, and vice versa. If he had people that were looking for more of like a mental health support group, they'd refer it to people to us. And so because ultimately we weren't Heard wasn't really preaching sobriety. We focus on balance, and balance looks different for everyone. And for some people that's sobriety and completely. For some people, it is really just kind of taking a step back and implementing some wellness practices in their life.
Yes. Yeah.
Really what we want people to do is just break up the rut of getting off of work at 3 a.m, driving through Whataburger, going home, smoking a bowl, drinking beers, going to bed at 6 a.m, waking back up at 3 p.m, and doing it all over again. Because when you're 21 years old, that's a sustainable, you can do that for a while, but you start seeing guys that are lifers that are in their early mid-30s, and things start shutting down. They have coronary issues and things. They may not have a serious, addiction problem, but they just haven't been to a doctor in 10 years, and they didn't know they developed a blood pressure issue, and all of a sudden they have a heart attack at 36. And so it's just because they haven't had insurance, because they've been working at places that don't offer insurance, or the insurance are way out of reach for them. When you're making $10 an hour, $11 an hour, $340 a month for healthcare, for your health insurance, it's not attainable. It's not. So what we did, like with our telehealth program, is we wanted people for $29 a month, they can at least have a primary care physician via telehealth, so they can monitor like things like their blood pressure meds or birth control, or if they get sick, they can get antibiotics for, like bronchitis or something. And then, instead of having to go to the ER and sit all day long, or go to, scrounge up $150 to go to the urgent care center. Yeah. So it's just, again,
I mean, it's definitely neat. I mean, I'm kind of in that same boat. I didn't have healthcare until, I think, right before the pandemic. I think 2017.
Yeah.
And I was 33 or 34, something like that. I mean, it's like, it's crazy. I spent that much time 10 years in the industry without any health insurance.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen a doctor as well in something like 8 or 10 years, since I was like 23 or 25 or something. So yeah, I mean, it catches up to you fast. I mean, when you're working that hard, like you said, you were working 3 jobs at one point, and when you're working that hard and that many hours, and then you're playing just as hard, you're drinking and going out and eating bad food, man, that catches up real quick. You don't think it does, but then all of a sudden you're 35, 36 and you're feeling it.
Yeah,
really hard,
absolutely. So. And it's I'm 47 now, and I still see cooks that are back there at my age still in the kitchens. So
I don't know how they do it.
I don't know how.
Yeah,
I could not do. Yeah, I did like a Tales of the Cocktail this past summer. I did like a guest bartending shift for a brand there, and it was maybe 6 hours on my feet bartending, and I was just, my body was just trash after 6 hours. Back and my knees. I was like, I can't imagine this, So
yeah. The dishwasher at my job right now he's 51, I think. And I'm like, I can't imagine. And he works more than me. He works, 16-hour days sometimes. And he's very proud of it. He's like, I'm still 51 and I'm strong as an ox. But I'm like, how, man?
Taxing on.
Yeah.
To stand, with your back just bent like that straight for that many hours.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a physically taxing job. And restaurant jobs are just physically taxing jobs. And a lot of people don't realize how physically taxing they are. So, there's some restaurants like here in San Antonio on the Riverwalk, you'll see waiters that are guys in their mid 50s that have been working on the Riverwalk, waiting tables for 30 years. And I think it does slip people's mind, the general public, that these are physically taxing jobs. These are not, lifting plates, trays of food, and especially like
standing on your feet.
Yeah, standing
just
on your
alone.
feet. Yeah. So it's just I again, when the pandemic started, there was just a lot of empathy. It seemed like for people that worked in restaurant, there's a lot of attention on them and getting them taken care of. And now that we're back to business as normal, I see a lot of behaviors from diners and customers and just general public that's kind of gotten back to the same, that's just a server. Those are just the cooks, it's like wages are still shitty a lot of times. There are exceptions, and there are some owner operators that are doing an amazing job of taking care of their people. But for a lot of people, the wages are really shitty for that physical of work and the way customers treat people a lot of times. And it's just, and there's just a lot of times this general lack of empathy for people that work in the service industry. And I don't know how to change that.
I don't know either. It's a complicated issue for sure, but I do see that there's quite a bit of there's a lack of people coming into the industry. And I wonder if that's sort of why. I don't know, but there's definitely a lot of young people that don't want to do this anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, I'm sure a lot of restaurateurs or chefs or bar owners who are having a hard time finding people just because people don't really want to do this work anymore, And part of that is that it's just shitty sometimes. It
is, and it's really hard work. And I was watching this one interview with Gary Vee where he said, people are worried about the Great Resignation, and just wait till people see the great not going to show up in the first place. Because I think the mindset of this generation coming in that the American dream of I want to work really hard to become wealthy is out the door. And you see more and more, like I have 2 of my kids are in college now, and you see more of what do I need just to be happy? Oh, I just need to make, $45,000 a year to have, for this life I like. And I can do that by, like flipping stuff on eBay or doing this. And see that they can use their own creativity to make a life where they're just comfortable. And that's becoming more and more appealing. I think the whole work your ass off to get, to get the house and the yard and the things. And they're like, well, we can't afford a $500,000 house. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, so like, I'm just
Yeah.
be comfortable renting. And I think that's great. Again, I think owner operators have a challenge in front of them of how they're going to attract and retain, workers that are quality. And I don't put that off on the workers. That's not,
No.
I
No,
don't,
not at all.
you hear some people go, well, people just don't want to work anymore. Well, no, not for $10 an hour doing backbreaking work.
Exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, it's just, I think that the mind shift of this generation coming up is just different, and owner operators are going to have to figure out how to work with those and make money. And it's a challenge. I mean,
For sure.
restaurant margins are tiny. I get it. I really do. Food margins, unless you have a really good bar program, your margins are
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so it's not. I don't think it's a lack of desire from a lot of owner operators, especially independent owner operators. It's just a really hard business model now. Yeah. So
Yeah, I think it's I hope that it's sort of shifting more towards, like, everybody talks about sustainability in the sense of an environmental sustainability, but I hope that there's going to be some sort of shift in like sustainability of the workforce. You know what I mean? Like, don't build a 200 seat restaurant that you can't get people to work, and then you're overworking the people who actually do work there. It's like,
exactly.
make a sustainable restaurant that has enough seats, and you have a menu that's sustainable to make sure your people are taken care of, and then also they don't have to overwork to
Yeah,
get that menu at the door.
exactly. I think things like having a menu that's not 40 pages long, and having
Yeah.
and making simple food really good,
Yeah.
and actually designing your restaurant back of house for a staff that makes the job easier, more accessible for them.
Mm-hmm.
If for some restaurants, don't buy plates that weigh fucking 50 pounds a plate.
Yeah, definitely in San Antonio, man. I've been to some restaurants in San Antonio. You're like, when did you make this plate? This plate is like from the 1940s.
Yeah, I'm like these poor bus boys are breaking their back.
Yeah,
like,
man.
Tables with these like huge Tex-Mex plates that weigh like 10 pounds apiece.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But yeah, it's
have you
definitely
seen?
going to be a challenge to it.
Yeah, have you seen a sort of increase or decrease after the pandemic in terms of who you guys are taking care of? Like, have people gone back to their normal routines, or have people kind of maintained and stayed with Heard?
I think we've had a mix of both. I think that as the word's gotten out, we do get it's a roller coaster. Like, we'll have some weeks where we have a lot of people attending, like a support group, and then sometimes we'll just have like 4 or 5, and it just it's a roller coaster. And I think a lot depends on the schedule and just and desire and people not wondering, is this really helping? But in general, I do see a shift in things like mental health and wellness being in the conversation.
Yeah.
I see like going to something like Tales of the Cocktail and seeing that there are a lot of more like non-alcoholic options, and people really doing focusing on things like wellness and moving your body and doing things like that. I think that is taking care of yourself is really been pushed to the forefront within the industry, and that's promising, and that's leaps and bounds, above what we've seen in the past.
Yeah,
I think if anything, though, again, it's just going to be about making it about normalizing that conversation. And I'm grateful for people like Philip Spear, who's a chef that is well respected, and like he's done a great job of normalizing wellness and moving your body and running and just and for people, especially to work back in the house, having more people like that are like, okay, I can be a chef, or I can be a cook, and I can still, I can take up running or take up yoga or rock climbing or something. I think it's just going to take more people like that to normalize it for back of house. Back of house people are so different. I'm one of those few that I did both, and
Yeah.
Every job in the restaurant at some point. It's a very different dynamic than you know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Back of house people tend to be a little more stubborn. They're a little more like, they're
Yes.
they kind of like their suffering. You know what I mean? It's like, no,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't work out and I
Oh yeah.
drink more than you and that kind of thing. So
Yeah. Working
whereas front of
hard.
house people, I think they like treat themselves a little nicer to some
Yeah.
extent.
They do.
So yeah. So yeah, I think you're definitely right. I think it does kind of come from, because people look to chefs now as like kind of tastemakers and things. It'd be nice to see more chefs talking about treating the workers better and
Yeah.
their cooks being healthier and things, as opposed to just pushing food forward or, trying to get Michelin stars and stuff.
Oh
It'd be
yeah.
cool if those two things went hand in hand, but you don't see it very often.
I'm hoping. I mean, I'm hoping that we start seeing more of a shift of like. I think the Michelin process and those things that there's such a level of ridiculousness in that. A lot of
Yeah,
that
there
is
is.
like it's just. I'm hoping we see more in a shift again towards just doing really good, really simple food really well, and
Mhm.
there's such a beauty in that like, you know, making things simple for your staff and providing something great for the public and the sustainability piece of it. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, what is the main, I guess the bread and butter of Herd? Like what do you guys do on a day-to-day basis?
right now, again, we just it's just as people request help finding again low cost or resources for them in their community to get help with mental health and resources and or finding that resource in their city that helps provide psychiatric care to if they're in need, if they're having, if it's a mental illness that that they're working with, the anxiety, depression, that they can get that help and not just ignore it because it's so expensive or
Yeah.
and so connecting people is in with those mental health resources and providing that weekly support group model for people to utilize to at least dip their feet in the water to start talking about issues they have, celebrating successes, coming together with some like-minded people in the industry to be like because for a lot of people it's mental health triage. It's just the needing to be connected and feel
Yeah.
connected to someone that's like-minded, and that's what for the majority of people that work in the service industry, that's what keeps us there in the first place is that connectivity.
Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
we're kind of for people that are especially like career service industry people, we're all wired the same for the most part.
Yeah.
We all thrive on that connectivity with others. We are people pleasers. Our
Yeah.
emotional
That's
payoff
true.
is to be nurturing and taking care of people in our own way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
As rough as rough and tumble as people back at house are, that's your crew, and you all have each other's backs, and so that's
Yeah.
um, and again, caring and taking care of your tribe has been such a normal characteristic for people that work in our industry.
For
So
sure.
so just taking care of that, I think, and again, normalizing what we're doing.
Hmm.
So
Do you guys still do the meetings? I think I met you when you were doing a meeting.
yeah, so we haven't been able to do one in a while. A lot of that has been because um, me being one person, I can't go to different places
I
just
feel you there. Yeah.
finding finding people that can do it in particular cities face to face has been a challenge.
Hmm.
That's why the online group has worked so well. We have a group of moderators in different parts of the country that all take turns
Hmm.
that moderating the online group and on Zoom. And we found that model has worked really well with people's schedules and people's transportation needs, and they can just utilize their phone. And also, it seems to be more accepted dipping your foot in the water on an online Zoom meeting where you can
instead of going to a place and
right.
Yeah.
That's again, it was such a roller coaster with places like when we were doing face-to-face groups, sometimes we would have, 6, 8, 10 people there. Sometimes we would have 2. Sometimes we'd have weeks in Austin where we would have nobody come.
Oh, dang.
Before the pandemic. And
yeah.
So it was just really challenging. So, but we'll do face-to-face things once in a while, whether it be a mental health first aid clinic or an education mixer, like a financial 101, the service industry folks. So we'll do things once in a while, but that weekly support group meeting on Zoom is very consistent. And we have such an amazing group of volunteer moderators. They're all bartenders or they work in restaurants. And
that's great. That's awesome. What's on the horizon for you guys? You guys just keep trucking along, or you guys got any big changes?
We've been growing, and we'll see how things evolve this coming year with Heard and what's going to happen with us. But it's our expectation is that we'll partner with someone that will be able to help scale it and grow it and continue on the mission of it that's able to be funded. And again, it's one of those things that it's a lot of times it's reactionary giving, and sometimes it's a new thing that people are like, really focus their attention and their dollars towards. I know the economy is really rough right now too for a lot of our corporate givers who would donate in the past that are really tightening down on their philanthropic giving. So we're seeing those challenges, and we'll see how things go. If nothing else, we'll continue doing like the online meetings, and if it's just that, and just continuing being there as a call-in resource for people to connect and help in their areas.
That's great. Well, I really hope you guys deserve everything that's you need, because you guys got a hell of a lot of work cut out for you. Because I mean, as well as I do, the service industry is can be hell sometimes. But just getting the word out there and stuff is a huge help. And knowing that there's people out there that are just like you and that are willing to help. So
no, it's just it's what I love to do. I love the industry, and I love the people that work in it, and that's just kind of where my heart is. So yeah.
Yeah. So if people need, if they're looking for some help, where do they go? What do they need to do?
Go to our website, iheardyou.org, is a great place to start for resources. And then if you keep an eye on the Instagram, which is at heard_org, you'll find out the different, as far as like our when we have our Zoom meetings and our Spark Group meetings, and find out. We have like different subjects each week. Each moderator has a different subject they'll cover. And right now they're doing a lot of holiday stuff. So just because holidays look so different for people that work in the industry than
for sure.
So our Instagram and online or our website are the best places to find us.
Great. All right. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. It was
Joel. It's great hearing your story finally after all this time. And I really appreciate it. I appreciate what you guys do. I want to do anything I can to get the word out, and I support you guys. So
I appreciate it, brother. Thanks so much, man. Let me know if you need anything else. I'll be here for you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks.
See you soon.
Bye, Joel.
Bye.